Señoras y señores de Úsala Media, estamos aquí de nuevo con la mesa redonda de Round Table desde la ciudad del amor fraternal, from the city of brotherly love. Les habla Fernando Méndez, Diego Gómez controlando la máquina digital y mi amiga, mi colega, la persona que más admiro en cuanto al tango, Meredith Klein. Bienvenida.
Gracias. Hola Fernando, ¿cómo estás? ¿Bien?
Muy bien. Bailarina y compositora y de todo. ¿Tú haces qué más?
What else do I do?
Sí.
Oh, I run the Philadelphia Argentine Tango School, and it's been a huge challenge over this year to go from an activity that is the most COVID dangerous possible activity where strangers put their faces together and to transform that whole dance world into something that can temporarily exist virtually until we get this terrible pandemic under control. So it's been a very challenging year.
Tango virtual, it's oxymoron.
It is. So it's not that we're really, well, it's complicated. We're keeping the hope of tango alive by offering virtual activities. We're allowing people to stay in shape in their homes. We are giving them chances to learn more about tango, especially the parts that they might not give attention to normally, like the history and the culture and all sorts of things. And we're just keeping the flame alive and the hope alive until hopefully we're all vaccinated and we can go back to dancing in the arms of strangers.
Right. Well, I don't know if you heard Dr. Fauci today said that we need 90% of the population to be vaccinated for the herd immunity.
Wow. So, that's so much more than they were thinking before. That's a huge number.
He has said between 75 and 80% it's okay, but he would aim for more. And then I got some ridiculous response from Marco Rubio saying that Fauci, the only person in this administration who told the truth, Marco Rubio says he lied. And Marco Rubio was the first person to line up to get a vaccine. So you tell me how ridiculous that is. Anyway, I don't want to talk politics because that gets my blood, I don't know.
There's a lot of reasons for the blood to boil these days. Many.
Blood pressure. Yes.
Yeah. So be careful. Be careful. We want you to stay healthy. So sometimes you have to turn your attention away from what's making your blood boil.
Too late for that, Meredith.
Right.
Anyway, so for those of you in the audience who have lived under a rock and don't know Meredith, a little background on Meredith Klein, founder of the Philadelphia Tango School, and much more than that. Meredith, a little some bio notes.
Bio notes. Well, yeah, I started dancing Argentine tango 21 years ago. And, contrary to what you see on Dancing with the Stars, where tango is portrayed as this very extroverted, sexy, sensual dance that's for an audience, the real Argentine tango is something that two people experience together on the dance floor. It's like a communion that lasts about only 10 minutes, and it's very internal. So when it's really great, usually you can't see that from outside. It's an experience of communication and improvisation and being together in the moment that's extremely special. And so I got hooked by that. I got seriously hooked, and it changed the trajectory of my life. So I ended up moving to Buenos Aires, living there a few years. I ended up finding a wonderful partner, Andres Amarilla, with whom I still dance today, who's from Buenos Aires and has this amazing tango biography. We came to Philadelphia in 2008 and established the Philadelphia Argentine Tango School. And that's my cat. That's actually our studio cat, Sheldon, that you just saw if you're watching the video.
Yeah, he's made a couple of appearances already.
Yeah, he's actually really sad because nobody's living at the studio right now. And so when I come here, he's all over me. So hopefully he's entertaining. But the school here was extremely active until COVID. So all kinds of classes and workshops and beautiful visiting artists, both dancers and musicians. In the course of a year, we would have over 90 to 100 different artists visit us, dancers, musicians. We'd offer all different kinds of tango dance and tango music activities. We organized one of the biggest tango festivals in the country, the Philadelphia International Tango Festival, and also a number of concert series, including the Fishtown Salon concert series. So we were doing all this stuff, none of which is possible in its normal way during the pandemic. And so the past year has been, or the past 9 months have been about finding different ways to keep tango alive. And we found many of them. None of them are permanent solutions, but they're good placeholders until we can dance again.
Yeah, we had the privilege of covering from Usara one of your events when you introduced the Messier Orchestra, and what a terrific night.
It really was.
Very happy to be there.
Yeah, so that was the 9th Philadelphia International Tango Festival. And of course, we had huge plans, the hugest plans to offer a 10th anniversary festival, because it was the 10th anniversary, and it was gonna be huge over Memorial Day weekend of this year. Obviously, it couldn't happen. First, we postponed that until 2021, that same Memorial Day weekend. And now we've moved it all the way to October 28th to 31st, 2021. But honestly, I don't know if we'll be able to do that. I feel like it's kind of a 50-50 chance.
Right.
Because it requires everything. It requires people to be comfortable dancing with strangers, people to be comfortable traveling and staying in hotels, and large groups of people congregating indoors. I don't know if we're going to be there yet by October. So
Yeah, right.
all plans remain fluid.
Well, unfortunately, that is true. And the more you listen to these doctors, the people we actually trust and believe, they say 6 months to 9 months before we get semi-normal. So, but that would sort of be within the date that you were planning. So let's hope.
Yeah, tango is so extreme because, like I said, it's not something you do just with one partner. What it depends on is dancing with many different people and having all these different experiences. So. Right. We have to go beyond semi-normal. We have to get to pretty, normal or post-normal, post-COVID normal. Beyond normal before you can have, large numbers of strangers together in a room, changing partners and dancing together in such a way that their faces are touching. Right. As you can see, the murals behind me. So that mural is, it's a picture of a social dance that happened right here in this room in, I think that's 2009, 2010, that photo was taken. And anyone you can see, they're dancing so close that their faces are together. Yep, it's right. not just a saying, right?
No, it's not the same. And I envy you because I have 2 left feet as far as dancing tango, but
we would get you going. You have to give us a chance. And what's really crazy is that over Zoom, we've been teaching over Zoom all this time, which sounded insane, but the truth is that people actually can make progress on tango in Zoom lessons, and it's been a real shock to me. That includes people who don't have a partner. We offer these individual technique classes, and they keep people in shape. You work on your balance. It's really useful, especially if you're an experienced dancer. But for people who are lucky, like you, to have a partner at home, the amount of progress you can make is really unlimited. We've had a lot of beginner couples, who are sheltered in place together and looking for something to add to their Friday night or whatever, who've started with us. And we've been absolutely shocked at our ability to get these beginner couples going and take them super far in their process of learning tango. It's been a real shock. So we expect to see you and Ellen in tango class in the new year.
Hey, we'll give it a try. So, Meredith, so that we have the ability now to play some music. We're talking about tango. You want to give people a little flavor of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Let's start by listening to a track by Romantica Milonguera. They were named Best Tango Orchestra in the World at the Premios Tango, like our Tango Academy Awards, the last time they were held in 2019. And they're really famous because they're awesome, and also because they have both a male and a female singer. So the interaction between them is often very sexy and very beautiful, and they always have the best musicians and the best singers. So here we go. This is a little bit of Invierno, which is appropriate.
Volvió el invierno con su blanco ajuar, ya la escarcha comenzó a brillar en mi vida sin amor.
Profundo padecer que me hace comprender que hallarse solo es un horror.
Muy bien. See,
That just gives you a little taste, just a little taste.
Yeah, that's well. And speaking of tango and music and events, so you have a big event you've been planning to recover from this period of darkness. So.
Well, the truth is we've been offering activities constantly ever since the darkness began. So it's ongoing for us. It's not something that's just starting now. But yes, a lot of what we've been able to do during the pandemic is kind of expand our work with even more artists than we were working with before, because now everything's virtual. So we can have, amazing musicians in Buenos Aires give a live concert to our audience here in Philadelphia, or give a live concert to an audience of people around the world. We've hosted many guest artists teaching live for our audience from Europe, from Buenos Aires, from other places. So it's something that's been going on for us since March. In fact, we held an entire virtual tango festival that had over 30 different activities and 50 different artists over the Memorial Day weekend, when we would have had the real festival, the real in-person festival. So it's something I've been building all this time. And basically it just, like I said, it keeps the hope of tango alive. It generates work for tango artists who are locked in their homes, and all over the world, people are not able to teach tango, perform live for the most part. Everybody is stuck in their homes. So these virtual activities, they both inspire and they also create a little bit of work. And sorry that you probably hear our tango studio cat meowing loudly. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I decided to kind of culminate a little bit all of his work and all of these connections by offering a live stream event for New Year's. that grew and grew and grew and grew. And now it's actually an 11-hour event. It's an 11-hour event. So we get to say goodbye to 2020, starting in Greece and moving all the way through until California. So that's a difference of how many? 11 time zones? Yeah, it's a difference of 11 time zones. And we get to say goodbye to 2020 approximately 11 times. The truth is
and
that
good riddance, right? Good riddance to 2020.
Absolutely. The more we can say goodbye, the better.
Do we have a tango that illustrates that? Like, get out of here, goodbye, do not come back.
Yeah, let me think about that. Let me think about that, which would be most appropriate. But I will tell you that we just really have the most amazing lineup imaginable. So it's 11 hours of activities, and most of it is concerts with some of the greatest tango bands that exist. And it's not old material, it's not stuff you can find on YouTube and such, but rather it's all either live or newly recorded, mostly in the past month. So all of these wonderful bands like the one we just heard, Romantica Milonguera, you can hear like brand new material over the course of these 11 hours. And then we have live interactions interspersed. So we'll be leaving my webpage, philadelphiatangoschool.com, where the concerts will show through Vimeo. They'll show right on the website. And then we'll go to Zoom like this, and everybody will be there, you know, hundreds of people toasting and saying Happy New Year. And we'll use a little bit of breakout rooms because we all know that large groups of people can't interact well through the tool of Zoom, but once you're in a small group, you can have more like a normal conversation. So we'll have large group interactions and also little breakout rooms on Zoom. And then all the concerts are showing beautifully using the tool of Vimeo, which is quite amazing for the sound and video quality, are showing through the Philadelphia Tango School website. And the coolest thing is that the event is actually free for attendees. It's supported by donations. The first $5,000 goes right to the artists. And then after that, if there is overage, it will split it between supporting the tango school here and the artists. And what's really beautiful is that we're already halfway toward that goal of getting $5,000. Yeah. So we're literally sending, you know, money to help artists, all of, you know, where 99% of their work has been canceled for the past year, and creating this event that's free for the world. So, you know, whether you still have a job or not, you know, everybody please is welcome to participate. And you can sign up at philadelphiatangoschool.com. And I'm just going to do you mind if I read through the list of the bands, because it's just amazing.
Not at all, no, please.
So a wonderful trio that's made up of two elders who were really important performers, Victor Lavachenne and Horacio Cabarcos, during the golden age of tango. These two elders with a very young pianist, Pablo Estigarribia, they make up the trio Lavachenne, Estigarribia, Cabarcos. They were nominated for Best Tango Album in the Latin Grammys this year. So this trio is one of the performers. We also have the orchestra we just heard, Romantica Milonguera. An amazing singer, Cucuxa Castillejo, recorded a new concert for us with his son on guitar. I may play you one of their tracks next. Nydia is in her mid 80s now, or even late 80s. She never sang on stage until after age 80. She had sung tango her whole life, but had never performed until she met a very young guitarist whose name is Juan Villarreal, actually a guitarist singer. And together they formed a duo that became insanely popular in Buenos Aires and around Argentina. And there's a beautiful, beautiful documentary about them called Amar Amando that you can find on YouTube. So that's Nydia and Juan. We also have Lisandro Adrover, who's one of the most respected and beloved bandoneon players in the world. Bandoneon is the signature instrument of tango that looks like an accordion, but very much is not. And we have La Juan D'Arienzo, another orquesta típica, meaning a full tango orchestra of at least 10 performers. who've been to Philadelphia twice, and another winner of this best tango orchestra in the world category. And then we have these amazing performances from a cycle called Tan Goldberg that features a really amazing pianist, Analia Goldberg, as well as Horacio Romo, a bandoneon player who's considered to be the best in the world, along with Daniel Falasca on bass and Pablo Agri on violin. And they're joined by all the most famous tango singers of today: Lydia Borda, Chino Laborde, Guillermo Fernandez, and Ariel Ardit. And in addition to all that, we have a piano and bandoneon duo, Ben and Winnie, who are performing live from their homes in Indiana. So they figured out what's nearly impossible, which is to actually play live from two different locations. It's a long story, but if you're geographically close and extremely techie, there's a way to make this work. So they're going to be playing live for our event. And then beyond, those are all the full sets, like big concerts. And then we have all of these other little sets, like your friend Emiliano Messias is going to perform one of them. Gustavo Rember, another big friend of the school, is going to perform from Buenos Aires, and so on and so forth. So the bottom line is we have this 11-hour event that I'm going to be sitting here running, which is pretty insane. And so much beautiful new music, newly recorded music and live music, that there will be very little repetition in the entire 11 hours, which is insane.
Oh, congratulations, Meredith. It sounds wonderful. I can't wait to tune in. But you mentioned a couple of things. Maestro Messier, I had the honor of meeting at your events and interview him. He's a magnificent pianist and a great teacher also. I saw a video of where he was explaining the music and all that.
Absolutely.
Brings me to ask you to explain to us about the 10-piece orchestra and what instruments is it composed of. I know it has the bandoneon and all that, but you can...
Absolutely. So in the early days of tango, tango was played by a lot of ad hoc groups of instruments, and especially ones that were highly portable. So the guitar was featured prominently, and flute and other easy to transport instruments. But then by the 1920s, a kind of more stable grouping of instruments and musicians was established, and that's called orquesta típica. So that became the typical configuration of a tango orchestra. And it consists of the piano, a bandoneon section. So again, bandoneon is the accordion-looking instrument, but it has buttons on both sides instead of a keyboard on one side, as an accordion would. So you have a section of bandoneons, usually 4, and then also a section of strings, which is usually violins, though sometimes there might be violoncello, but usually it's about 4 violins, and then the double bass. So piano, double bass, bandoneon, and violin sections make up the typical tango orchestra.
Excellent. Yeah, I love the sound of the bandoneon. As you say, it sounds. It looks like an accordion. It's sort of a small accordion, but it looks to me extremely difficult to play. That.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Totally. So the bandoneon is quite crazy, and we should bring a bandoneonist on to talk to you about it sometime. But first of all, the buttons on both sides are in no particular order. So there's no logic. It's for example, I play the piano, which is a very, very logical instrument. So it's literally impossible for me to imagine playing and learning an instrument where all of the buttons are in a random order. But then beyond that, if you're pushing certain buttons and you expand the instrument, and then you keep the same buttons pushed and you contract the instrument, which is there's 2 ways of making sound, it will play a different note. Yeah, so you have to remember, so it's like each side has a certain tone expanding and a completely different tone, contracting. So for me, all of that is just, so bandoneon players agree that you have to be somewhat insane to play the bandoneon, and
right.
I had a show on Usula Radio for a long time until the pandemic just made it impossible to continue. But we had a lot of bandoneon players on talking about the instrument and also talking about the particular madness that caused them to start playing. For example, one of the bands that will be featured on the New Year's broadcast is La Juan D'Arienzo, which is named after the king of the beat, the Juan D'Arienzo, who from the 1920s, actually through 70s, was a wildly popular tango orchestra. He was the leader of this orchestra. And the new version, La Juan D'Arienzo, the director, Facundo Lazzari, his grandfather was the second bandoneon and also the principal arranger in the orchestra of the original Juan D'Arienzo. And Facundo, so the grandson, talks about how even though his grandfather was a bandoneon, very, very, very prominent composer and bandoneon player, that Facundo kind of grew up without much sense of music or tango or anything. And then something happened, and when he was about 18, he became interested in the instrument, and he literally locked himself in a room for 2 years and did nothing but play the bandoneon. So here you have this teenager, and it's not the pandemic, right? He could have done anything, right. And he locked himself in a room, and he learned in just 2 years to play this very difficult instrument. And he played for his grandfather, and his grandfather said, "You're ready, come join my orchestra." And he did. He started playing with his grandfather, and 9 months later, his grandfather suddenly passed away out of nowhere. And it's oh my gosh, if he hadn't, by some stroke of madness, been motivated to lock himself in a room and do the impossible and learn this instrument in 2 years, he wouldn't have gotten to play with his grandfather, and then he wouldn't have inherited the mantle, because it was because of playing with his granddad that he got the right to keep using that name, La Juan D'Arienzo, and that's why the orchestra exists today. And I love that story because it just shows, the chance that's involved in life, right? That could easily not have happened, and this orchestra would easily not have still existed. So.
Yeah, the bandoneon has always intrigued me, and obviously invented by a madman, and you need to be mad to want to learn to play that.
Well, you know what? It was not invented by a madman. Do you know where the instrument came from?
No idea, but
really?
You will tell me.
I will. I want you to, oh gosh, I want you to guess, where do you think in the world it might have come from? Any idea?
Where it came from, Israel.
No. It came from Europe. No? It came from Germany. It came from Germany, and it was invented for a very specific purpose, which could be possibly the total opposite of what it ended up being used for. Do you want to hazard a guess, or should I just tell you?
No idea.
It was invented as a portable church organ.
Ah, wow. Yeah, makes sense.
So for immigrant groups, for congregations that couldn't afford the cost of a big organ or didn't have a permanent space, it was a way, a portable way to accompany church services. And as such, it had very few buttons because you can play most church hymns with just a few chords.
Right.
So it was a very simple instrument, actually, that only played a few chords. And then as it became crucial to this new genre of tango in the early 1900s, people started adding buttons. And that's why the buttons are in such a crazy arrangement, because they were added after the fact. So it started off as a pretty straightforward instrument for a straightforward purpose. And then, it went in the complete other direction in terms of complexity and how it was used and the ethos of it, which now it's a very haunting instrument. It really tugs at the emotions and the heartstrings in a very kind of complex way. So it just a kind of a 360-degree turn, 180-degree turn.
Well, amigos, si acaba de sintonizar, usa la radio. Estamos en una conversación con Meredith Klein, hablando del tango, sus orígenes, instrumentos, etcétera, y hemos tenido la oportunidad de escuchar un poco de música del tango. Vamos seguir la conversación y escuchar más tango. Posiblemente Meredith tiene un montón de música que no vamos a tener tiempo para oír todo, pero seguramente vamos a oír por lo menos un par de piezas más. Hablando del instrumento, ¿cómo se convirtió? How did the bandoneon become one of the main instruments of tango?
Well,
do we know that? Because it was imported by Europeans, obviously, because early on the main immigration was from Italy and France and all that. They probably already had the bandoneon.
Exactly. So the Germans brought the bandoneon to Argentina, to Buenos Aires, and tango itself was formed by the influences of many, many different immigrant peoples. So Italians, Germans, Africans, a lot of the rhythm, especially in the more upbeat rhythm of tango, which is called milonga, which is the faster, happier rhythm inside the genre, were contributed from African freed slaves, African immigrants. And then there were also a lot of influences from the countryside and the tradition of pachador, which was singer-storytellers accompanying themselves on guitar, often interacting with another pachador in a kind of jokey, friendly, competitive way. So these traditions of pachador from the countryside, and then many different traditions inherited from immigrants from all over Europe, and then also the African influence, came together and eventually produced tango. And like I said, in the early days, it was played on kind of whatever instruments were available. Yeah, people would come together and, they literally might not share a language yet. They maybe have been so recently in the country that they didn't speak Spanish. They couldn't actually communicate. They were from different places, but they started making music together, and this music evolved into tango.
The guitar initially was also very important.
The guitar? Exactly, absolutely. Yes, and we just, so one of the big things I've done during the pandemic is started a tango lecture series every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. And the last lecture we had before we took a break was on the history of the guitar as an instrument in tango, and how it was quite prominent up until the time of Gardel, right? And the urban tradition of tango and the countryside tradition of pachador, they were very linked. And then after that, there was kind of a separation, and tango became much more a manifestation of the city, and the instruments started to exclude the guitar. So the piano, which is a much louder instrument, took precedence, and it kind of subsumed the guitar. And also the bandoneon is also a much more powerful instrument. And back then, of course, they didn't have the options for amplification that we have now that can make a guitar and a piano sound equal. Back then, it was kind of like the piano overwhelmed the guitar and made it obsolete in tango.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because early on, a lot of recordings, even from Carlos Gardel, where the background is guitar.
Yes, he was a guitarist and he was a pachador.
Right.
So, yes.
Now, was he French? Because that's I don't think that anybody knows for certain where he came from. But
yeah, I think they say he was actually born in Toulouse, right? I think.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of controversy still. Yeah.
Argentine idol. The Argentines love their idols, Maradona, Messi.
Yeah, such a sad year with the loss of Maradona and so many others. Yes.
But Gardel died early on, but his legacy lives to this day as the best tango interpreter ever, and even with those ancient recordings, you can still hear.
Yeah, the greatest voice in the history of tango. Yes.
It's amazing. It's like Pavarotti in opera. That's like, I don't know who's going to do better than Pavarotti.
Yeah, he's a legend, and he deserves. Even though, I mean, today there's a flourishing of young people making tango music, instrumentalists, and
you mentioned Guillermo Fernandez. I haven't heard, or if I have, I probably didn't recognize the voice. But
yeah, he's one of the most famous, as well as Chino Laborde, also incredibly beloved. Hernan Cucusa Castillejo, who's also performing in our event. The singer of Romantica Milonguera, Fernando. No, sorry. I'm forgetting my friend's name. Also Fernando Rodas, who's the singer of La Guandarienzo, Ariel Ardit, Lidia Borda, all of these singers are making amazing tango music today and are incredibly beloved. Juan Villarreal, whom I already mentioned, for me, he has the most beautiful voice in history.
Wow.
Maybe I'll play you some Juan Villarreal eventually when you tell me.
That would be great.
Yeah?
Yes. Go ahead.
All right, wait, I have to look for it.
Okay. But you mentioned this other person, Kokusha?
Yes.
And where is he from? That sounds like very European.
He's from Buenos Aires. Almost everybody that I mentioned lives in Buenos Aires. Yes. Some like Juan that I'm ready to play when you tell me. He's from Patagonia, but he lives in the city of Buenos Aires now.
And his last name is Villarreal.
Exactly. You want to hear?
Oh, let's hear one. Let's hear.
Here we go. So this is a guitar duo, Juan Villarreal and Patricio Crom, who are celebrating 10 years performing together this year. And then you're about to hear the voice of Juan Villarreal. And this was composed by their friend.
Vas y venís distraída del olvido hasta mi boca y se me vuelve guitarra la ausencia cuando me toca. Y se me vuelve guitarra la ausencia cuando me toca. Urde la tarde un silencio de chicharras en la loma, los de durazno el verano y de astillas en la boca. De la tarde un silencio para tu voz que retoña. Pero explícale mejor, guitarra, a mi corazón, con qué perfumo el misterio y el don, si es mi amor pura intención, hoja suelta en el recuerdo y aquel perfume mejor se lo llevó el aguacero.
And of course, you can go on Spotify, you can go on iTunes, and you can put in the name Juan Villarreal and enjoy lots of wonderful music, both with this, in many different ways, in this guitar duo that you just heard, also singing with some of the great orquesta típicas of our time. One is El Murro Tango, and also performing with this amazing singer Nidia that I mentioned, who's in her mid-80s. The focus of the documentary Amar Amando, and also performing for our New Year's event.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with the old-time singers, like, you know, from Gardel to Agustin Magaldi and all the super famous ones, but I didn't know some of these voices, the new voices, so
exactly.
It's nice to hear that.
And the cool thing is, if you tune in for New Year's, just in one fell swoop, you can get to know, you know, a huge array of the great tango musicians of our time, instrumentalists and vocalists. It's really, really cool. And I'm just so grateful that every single band, every single musician I reached out to said, sure, Sure, we'll record you a concert. Sure, we'd love to perform live on your event. And this is the only stream of its kind happening to celebrate the New Year. And we have people registered from the whole world, from Japan and all over Western Europe and all over South America and all over North America. It's really crazy.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And that one I just heard it. I mean, this is sheer poetry.
Right.
Edgar Allan Poe said that nostalgia is the most legitimate poetic sentiment, and tango certainly has that corner. Or most tangos, unless it's milonga, most tangos are very nostalgic.
Absolutely, and very. Appropriate for every moment, but especially now when we're all missing so many aspects of normal life. And this has already gone on for so many months, and already what was normal has receded so far into the past that it can be hard to feel and remember what that was like. Tango specifically can speak to this moment because, as you say, it features so much nostalgia.
Yes, I mean, almost any tango that I hear, although there are some tangos that I think in the modern world, people would object to some of these tangos that had the lyrics were all very, very macho lyrics.
Yeah, and even before that, I mean, the early tangos were very, very bawdy and funny. So the ones written before the year 1900 and the first 10 years of the 1900s, right. It was a very different vibe. It was, super street and potty humor and very silly, very bawdy. And then the nostalgia and the complexity and the poetry that all started to come a little bit later by the 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yes, but I know there are a couple of tangos about killing your lover in revenge for her unfaithful.
Yeah, there's also that. There's a lot of a constant theme is lost love and the one who got away, and sometimes that takes a very, very ugly twist in lyrics, and it's problem. Yeah.
Yeah, overall tango is just beautiful to listen to. It's a lot of poetry in it, especially talking about love and wanting to love and to be loved.
Exactly.
So, do you have anything else that we can listen to, Meredith? And do you have so much?
Always endless. I don't know. You brought up the Típica Messias a few times. And so I thought maybe we should play a recording from their concert premiere that Ursula covered. You were right there next to the stage. And also, this is one of the members of the orchestra is actually very ill right now with COVID and really struggling in the hospital. So it's not my place to say, it's not Maestro Emiliano, he's doing fine, but we can send out some love and good wishes for the health of this musician. Yeah. So let's give a listen to, let me find it, to 9 de Julio, which, as you know, is Argentine Independence Day. And it's also a wonderful tango that was probably composed in, I think, the 19-teens or around 1920. And this arrangement is by Maestro Emiliano Messias. And you can hear yourself there in the crowd, Fernando.
Yeah, 9 de Julio. And so it's an original composition by Maestro Messier.
No, it's a tango that's existed for 100 years, but he arranged it for the orchestra, and in arranging it, he added a second melody, which is a technique that's used sometimes by arrangers. So the da 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 that didn't exist before. So the whole tango existed da 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 as you hear it, but that secondary melody was completely the invention of Emiliano, in addition, obviously, to the instrumentation and everything that an arranger needs to do to take a piece that exists and get his orchestra ready to play it, to give everybody their parts and everything. But he also did something more, which was create the secondary melody. And what's so cool is that that melody is so convincing that now when I hear any of the previous recordings, they sound like they're missing something. And that's that's when you know an arrangement is forever because it kind of one-ups everything that was done in that song in the past 100 years. It's quite remarkable, actually. Yeah, and it just really speaks to the genius that is Emiliano Messias and how incredibly really fortunate we've been to to have him be a really close collaborator of the school over the past few years.
Yeah, you want to give us a brief bio of Maestro Messier, just as so we don't.
Oh, goodness. Well, he something really cool is that for the New Year's event, he's going to play a tango, uno, the tango uno that probably you know.
Right.
And the truth is... Exactly. The truth is that his mom walked out of the room when he was 3 years old and came back in to find him picking that out on the piano. So that's how he started when he was 3 years old, picking out the tango uno. And then he didn't study tango. He went to a classical music conservatory in Buenos Aires. He taught there. In addition to being a pianist, he taught theory and harmony and composition. Back at that time, the Berklee College of Music, which you know from Boston, they actually had a program in Buenos Aires. They had a school, a location in Buenos Aires, and he did the popular music program there. He traveled around the world playing every kind of music, popular and Argentine folk and Argentine rock, as well as tango, which he only took up in his, I guess, early 20s or so. But then, even though he said he didn't grow up playing tango, it turns out that his dad was a good friend of Antonio Agri, the very famous violinist who played with Piazzolla and Goyeneche. And it turns out that Emiliano remembers going to hear Agri and Goyeneche record. So as a child, as like a young teen, he had this experience of hearing, talking about one of the greatest tango voices in history, Roberto Goyeneche, El Polaco, that he actually got to be there and hear and see that. Imagine how that puts, a tango or any genre in your DNA to be part of history in that way. So anyways, Emiliano moved to New York from Buenos Aires just 4.5 years ago, and has played a lot of tango since then, but also has his composing career has also taken off. And right now he's working very hard as the composer for a new musical, which is called Bordello, which takes place in the 1920s Buenos Aires and combines musical genres from around the world. Tango, klezmer, because the story has to do with Eastern European Jewish immigrants, as well as rock, pop, jazz, swing, kind of modern musical theater genre, all of it. So super fascinating project, and I've gotten to be tangentially involved a little bit and just really enjoy it, and hope that the name Bordello will one day be a household, something that everybody knows. We'll see.
Well, good luck with that project. But now that you mentioned Buenos Aires and we played 9 de Julio, and it's the Independence Day, and it is also a famous, very wide avenue in Buenos Aires.
Absolutely. The widest avenue in the world. The widest avenue in the world.
Do you miss Buenos Aires? Silly question, huh?
Oh God, yes. Have you been to Buenos Aires, Fernando?
No, I haven't. Only
Have you been?
only in the movies.
You
No,
have to go.
I would like to.
Hopefully you can
actually.
hear me. It says my internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, I miss a great.
Yeah,
great
it is a magical, amazing city. It fills you with an energy that is not the same energy as New York, but I compare them because it's another like very potent, very intense energy. That's the energy of the city. But whereas New York has a sharpness, Buenos Aires has like kind of a loving expansiveness, that there's more, like for example, you'll be on a bus, a colectivo, and it'll pull up next to the other colectivo, and you'll see the two drivers get into like a very like heartfelt conversation in the 32 seconds they have available. People are just like very, they really reach out to you. And that's the first thing I realized when I moved there. Not speaking a word of the language, I was just amazed by how much people opened their hearts to me and were said ridiculous things like, your Spanish is great, when I didn't speak a word. And I was like, wow, what a generous people, what a group of generous people. And very,
but your
very
Spanish
loving.
is great nowadays. You do know.
I mean, yes, but I learned everything after moving there. So
Right.
yeah, so I started in my 30s and.
Would you like to live in Buenos Aires?
Well, I did. I lived there for 3 years. I lived there long enough to know the parts that are amazing and also know the parts that are very difficult, like all different kinds of bureaucracy that make it very hard to do lots of things.
Right.
When you live in a place, you get to know the nuts and bolts of things, and the nuts and bolts of things are harder in Buenos Aires than in other places. So then when I came back to the US, I always appreciate things that are easier for me here than they would be there. So in terms of running a business and everything, not that it's easy in any possible way, but it is easier here than it would be there. And then I just always look forward to going back and spending time in really my favorite city in the world.
Yeah, what you just said about being there different from other experiences. I feel that way going to Colombia and coming back and I know how life is more difficult over there. So
absolutely,
especially now in all our countries, the pandemic has destroyed everything.
And it's worth mentioning that when we come back, we also live in one of the coolest cities on earth, Philadelphia. So it makes it easier to not be in Buenos Aires or in Colombia than if I had to live somewhere else. I love the city so much. I love Philadelphia. I'm so grateful to be here. And it's what a wonderful, lucky thing to be able to connect so much with multiple places on earth,
Yes, I totally agree with you. I mean, I have lived here most of my life in the U.S. and it right before the pandemic hit, we had become a renowned restaurant city.
Absolutely, and God, we don't know what's going to happen, but it's so tragic. All of the restaurants, all of the small businesses, all of the cultural organizations that are not going to make it, are simply not going to make it. It's a huge tragedy. And we're fighting every day to not let the Tango School be one of them. So yeah, none of it is easy. It's a really hard time for everyone.
But there is hope now on all fronts. I mean, we have a new president. We have new efforts to vaccinate people, and hopefully we'll come back to rebuild this city. And
absolutely,
you have been very instrumental in the tango popularity of tango on this side of the world, and I think I congratulate you for all your efforts.
Thank you. I just love it. I fell in love with it 21 years ago, and it doesn't fade. So it feels right Meredith, to dedicate a lot of energy to it.
I want to really thank you very much for being on Usala Media. And before we leave, maybe you can close up with another tango.
I would love to. I saw people in the waiting room, but they're for the next show. I was afraid that you had to bring someone on.
Yes,
or...
yes, they
Okay.
are for the next one.
Okay, perfecto. Okay, I was thinking of playing you. So you asked about Hernan Kokusha Castillejo, who's another one of the great tango singers of today. I was thinking of playing you a track of Kukusha playing along with his son Mateo, and they're going to be featured on the New Year's Eve event. And everybody, it's a free event, and you can sign up at philadelphiatangoschool.com. If you go to philadelphiatangoschool.com, you'll see all the information right there on the homepage, and you can follow links to learn more and sign up. So, you know, it's cool because it's not a big commitment. It's a very long event, but you don't, you know, you can come and go. I mean, there's no, you don't have to join the Zoom interactions. There's a lot of ways to take part. So everybody's welcome to kind of check it out and not feel like you're stuck in any way. Yeah, it can be background music for whatever you're doing. So please, everybody is welcome to join.
I will say goodbye now. Thank you, Meredith, for being on Usala Media, the round table. And we hope you come back soon and keep us company.
Of course. Thank you so very much for inviting me. And here is some Kokusa to end the show. Suerte loca.
Bye-bye.
I forgot that it starts with talking. Here we go.
Y a mi lado oigo decir que es porque estoy con una suerte loca. Al saber le llaman suerte. Yo aprendí viendo trampearme y ahora solo han de coparme los que banquen con la muerte. En el naipe del vivir para ganar primero perdí. Yo también entré a jugar confiado en la ceguera del azar y luego vi que todo era mentir y el capital en manos del más vil. No me crees, te pierde el corazón. ¿Qué fe tenés, no ves que no acertás? Que si apostas a cartas de ilusión son de dolor las cartas que se dan. No me envidies si bebés acertador, pues soy el desengaño. Y si ciego así perdés, es que tenés los lindos 20 años. El tapete es la esperanza, y a pesar de lo aprendido, si me dan lo que he perdido, vuelve a hundirme la confianza. Suerte es lo que es conservar una ilusión en tanto penar. Yo también entré a jugar, confiado en la ceguera del azar, y luego vi que todo era mentir y el capital en manos del más vil. No me canegues, te pierde el corazón. Que fe tenés, no ves, que no acertás. Que si apostas a cartas de ilusión son de dolor las cartas que se dan. En el naipe del vivir para ganar primero perdí.
Señoras y señores, hemos llegado al final de la mesa redonda de Round Table. Se despide Fernando Méndez. Meredith Klein was with us. Hasta la próxima. Bye bye.